Wednesday will be back. Wednesday will be back. I think the uncertainty of the pitch doesn't help. Obviously with ownerships, with change of manager, with constant changes of players. The biggest strength Sheffield Wednesday have is the fans.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of All Wednesday. This week we've got a Champions League winner in our midst. Not with Wednesday, obviously, but Neil, thanks very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Joe, very well, thank you. I've not been introduced like that before, thanks.
Well, you are though, aren't you? You're a Champions League winner.
Officially, yes, but I never played in the final. So, for some people, they'll say, no, it doesn't count. But for me, I played a part in that season, yeah.
Well, you certainly got closer than I ever got, so I'll allow it. First question. Obviously, this is I will talk about the Champions League a little bit later on, but this is a Wednesday show. But for you, born at Jessops, grew up in Sheffield. What was it for you like growing up in Sheffield? I mean, your dad had written his sort of name into Sheffield folklore in '79 with the Boxing Day massacre. Was he still recognised a lot? Like when you were sort of growing up and wandering around Sheffield.
Joe, I would love to have seen how popular my dad was back in Sheffield when I was growing up. But I left Sheffield at 5. So I was born in Jessops
Oh,
Hospital,
right. Okay.
grew up in Chapeltown, went to primary school. And then at 5, my mum and dad moved and they moved back to sort of Sale, Manchester way. So for me,
Okay.
I never really got to see how sort of popular my dad was around Sheffield Wednesday, but he told me the stories. The thing for me was my big brother Simon, who's 8 years older. He's a big Wednesdayite. So even today, so he would always be Wednesday, and he'd have all the posters of Danny Wilson, Chris Waddle, Sheridan, Earsley, and all that on the wall, and so that was sort of how I got to learn about Wednesday. And, Dad played for Sheffield Wednesday and all that. So I didn't really see sort of the Sheffield people talk about my dad.
Yeah, because you were born a couple of years after the Boxing Day massacre, right? Was it 82 you were born in?
Yeah, I was
It's
82, yeah.
yeah, it's a shame, but, I suppose via, family, via your dad, you got to hear about that and what it was like. I did wanna touch on sort of the footballer father element of things. Was there a pressure, like intentionally or unintentionally to, follow in your dad's footsteps when you've got that, so many kids want to go up and be footballers. When you've got that very specific role model as a parent, how was that?
I had it all the way through growing up. Ian Mellor's son, will he be as good as his dad? The thing for me was, which maybe helped, the fact that my older brother didn't quite make it. He was a good player, but he wasn't quite at the level to make it as a professional. And so I think he had a lot of that burden, that pressure, because he was the first sort of son. Whereas for
Yeah,
me, it was a case of quite naturally scoring a lot of goals from a very young age. And can he be as good as his dad? Can he be as good as his dad? It was always said throughout growing up. Probably never was in the end.
well, I mean, you had big shoes to fill in that sense, didn't you? Um, just on the Wednesday side, obviously you came through the academy at Liverpool. You had some pretty big moments at Liverpool, but a little bit further, down the line, you get to sort of 2010, 2011, that season. What was it that led to you joining Sheffield Wednesday? I know that you'd obviously worked with Alan Irvine before. Did that family connection as well with your dad? Did that help Wednesday get the deal done?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I remember even when I left Liverpool, speaking to the chief scout who said, "What clubs would you be interested in joining?" And I said, "Sheffield Wednesday." Even back then, I ended up signing for Preston. But Wednesday was a club that even today still means a lot to the family. The fact that my dad had played there, obviously had the Boxing Day massacre. My brother's a big Wednesdayite. The fact that I had a season. So the club means so much to me. And I wanted to experience it at some point. I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps and think, I'd love to play for Wednesday. I played against them and seeing obviously the travelling fans, and my brother spoke about them all the time. I was like, I just love a season at Wednesday. And so when the chance came, it was a combination really. The fact that Alan Irvine was there, I turned down a championship team to sign for Wednesday in League One because of Irvine, best coach I ever had, and wasn't treated right at Sheffield Wednesday, in my opinion. The fact that my brother was a big Wednesdayite, but the fact that my dad had played there, it was sort of got to try it, got to go there, and obviously the fans, but huge support at home and traveling as well. So yeah, it was quite an easy decision in the end, and one that I was made up.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Did you have other options then? So you said you turned down a team in the Championship. Was there sort of a few different options on the table? Obviously, you'd done well at Liverpool. You'd scored goals there. You know, obviously, people my age remember the Olympiacos goal and things like that. You'd had a good spell there. Did you have quite a few options, but you just go in? I want to give this. I want to give this a go.
2 years at Preston. The manager said that he didn't want me part of his plans, which was Darren Ferguson at the time. I had 2 years left, and so I wasn't in any rush to be leaving. But because Wednesday were there, and a couple of others in the background were interested as well. But Wednesday was the one I wanted to pursue because of the reasons that I mentioned. But Irvine was a big factor. I loved working with Alan Irvine, absolutely brilliant coach, and it just all fitted nicely to go and sign in pre-season. I was fuming with him though. He never played me game one, did he? Game one, Dagenham and Redbridge at home. I mean, who remembers that? We beat them 2-0. Irvine put me on the bench for Clinton Morrison. I was fuming.
Did you have to have a word with him after that? Because you played a fair few after that, didn't you?
He finally got me on the pitch in that game. He had me sub again at Colchester, but that's when I scored my first goal. And do you know what? It was probably one of my best Wednesday goals. That I
Mm.
quite enjoyed it. My dad was there, which meant a lot to me as well. It was in front of the Wednesday fans. A few of the fans came on and celebrated, shared that moment with me. So yeah, I did enjoy that one. And then he got me in the team after I scored at Colchester.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about your numbers in that season. Obviously, a lot of people remember it as up until Michael Smith recently being the last Wednesday player to score 20 goals in a season. But your numbers that year were a bit nuts, weren't they? It was a very sort of mediocre season for the most part from a club perspective. But I was looking, I think you got 34 goals and assists in 43 games. I mean, that's some return, isn't it?
Yeah, he counted my penalties. I think I won 10 penalties that season, and Tommy Miller was the penalty taker. And every penalty, I'd say, Miller, man, can I have the pen? No. Can I have the pen? I thrive on scoring. He was a midfielder. He got double figures that season because of me. Yeah, I won a lot of penalties that season. I enjoyed scoring the goals, of course. I was dropped by Gary Megson 9 or 10 games because I gave away a penalty at Rochdale. But it was a very unsettled place that season, Sheffield Wednesday. It started off ever so well with Alan Irvine. Then there was all the uncertainty of administration, the takeover, Milan Mandaric, the managerial change, which I can't believe happened. New players coming in. It was just like, wow, this is a really difficult place to be around. And obviously, you could see with the finish in mid-table, it was nowhere near good enough for Sheffield
Mm.
Wednesday. But new manager Gary Megson came in and then got time to do what he needed to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because there was a point, was I think like 8 or 9 games when you were either on the bench or not in the squad at all, and then you came back and I think it was 11 goals and assists in 8 games when you did get back in. What happened there? You say it started because you gave a penalty away and then just got bombed basically.
Yeah. Megson told me it cost him the game. It was 2-0 at half time at Rochdale. I said, you've got 45 minutes to go. I'm your top scorer. But yeah, he took me to Carlisle, unused sub. Bournemouth away, unused sub. Dagenham and Redbridge, unused sub. I was like, I just wasn't getting used at all. Sometimes not even in the squad because there was a limit
Mm.
of how many loan players you could have. And because he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
bringing his own players in and all that, it was. So then Medine was catching me. Medine was on about 17, 18. I was thinking, he's going to overtake me here. Anyway, I finished top scorer. He got me back in the team, scored a few goals, and then he wanted to keep me, having bombed me off for 10 games.
What happened there? Was it just wasn't able to get something done in the end?
Yeah, I grew to really like Gary Megson. For the spell I was out of the team, I was fuming, saying, "What's going on? I need to be playing." I didn't understand it. I was fit. I think I was unavailable for 2 games that season for Sheffield Wednesday.
Mm.
That was it. So there's a lot of games in the season. There's only 2 games. One where I done my ankle at Carlisle in the league trophy. Just sort of landed awkwardly, so I missed a couple of games. That was it.
Mm.
Yeah, Megson he didn't fancy me. He wanted his own players. I got that, but then he realised he needed me in the team, and
Yeah,
so by the end of the season we got on really well. But I just couldn't trust that he wouldn't do it again. So I just thought, I still got another year left at Preston. The manager there was desperate to build a team around me. And
right.
with what had happened with Megson, I was like, I just can't trust it. So I left it.
Fair enough. I mentioned before, it's Michael Smith. Obviously, Smudger was the first one to get that 20 goal that to hit that point for Wednesday. Was that quite nice seeing someone else do it after such a long period of time?
No, no, no. I wanted that record forever. No, what I was working for Sky in the studio as well, and I was the last Wednesday player to score a hat trick for ages. Must have been about 10 years. And then Knew You, have I said his name right there or not?
Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
he got a hat trick, and I was like, about time someone scored a hat trick. But I was working in the studio at the time. Do you know what? These records, it's nice to have had one at some point, but of course, they need to be broken. And I can't believe it was actually that long before it was broken.
Yeah. You got your first hat trick at Wednesday, right? Your first professional hat trick.
Yeah, I only had two professional hat tricks. That was a frustration of mine. Scored goals, but never hat tricks. So one at Hillsborough in the league trophy against Hartlepool. Brother and my dad were there, and then one at MK Dons. Hat trick of headers. Not many do that one. That was quite a nice one.
No, I think that's even rarer than a perfect hat trick. That a hat trick of headers.
Because I never scored headers. I mean, look at the state of my forehead; it's tiny, so I never really won many headers. So yeah, that was unusual.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the Hillsborough experience like for you? You know, obviously you have got that family history, and you said your brother was there a lot, but it was a difficult time at Wednesday. There was a bit of carnage going on. The fans, you know, they weren't always turning up the way that they often we've seen them do, you know, in the last few years. But was it still quite a special thing to be walking out at Hillsborough?
Yeah, I mean, expectation was high. Wednesday wanted to be competing to get back promoted. I think there was a lot of frustration because we weren't doing as perhaps well as we wanted to. The administration, the changes off the pitch didn't help. We were around the playoffs. We'd have got close to promotion with Alan Irvine, but the ownership changed, the manager changed. So many players came in, and it really didn't help. And the fans saw that, and the frustrations with some of the results, some terrible results that season. But that's football.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a season that lives long in the memory for a lot of reasons. Neil, thanks very much. That's the first half over and done with. We'll be back for part two, and Neil will be talking to us about a bit more about Wednesday and that Champions League campaign for Liverpool as well. Cheers. Welcome back to part two of this week's All Wednesday. Neil, will crack straight back into it. I want to ask you: did you have any sort of, obviously, I think footballers have these moments at different stages in the careers. Did you have any moments while you're at Wednesday, good or bad, where you had like an epiphany of like, oh, this is something's got to change here, or this is where I'm meant to be, or anything like that?
Yeah, Yeovil away. I mean, who wants to play at Yeovil away? Not me. And I remember I was sat on the bench. It was still under Alan Irvine at this time. It was before Christmas. I was looking round, and it was just a non-league setup. If people have been to Yeovil, and no disrespect to Yeovil, but it's not a top ground, is it? So I'm sat there thinking, what am I doing on the bench here? This is not where I want to be for my career. 0-0. It was awful. Manager brought me on, and we won the game 2-0. I won a penalty. But at that moment, I was like, I've got to do something about this. I'm not happy at all. So round about that time, a psychologist came into Sheffield Wednesday, a guy called Lee Richardson. He'd been a manager, he'd been a player. And so we just had a little chat with him. First time I'd ever really dealt with a psychologist. And he just sort of said, you've been a bit reactive. You need to be a little bit more proactive. Sort of did a few little sessions with him. And I said, listen, I really want to score a hat trick. And within sort of 2 weeks of seeing him, I'd got a hat trick against Hartlepool, then another one about 10 days later, whatever it was, 2 weeks at MK. And my record after that was a lot better. And I was in the team playing. So that was a big turning point for me, that Yeovil on the bench thinking, what am I doing here? Thankfully, we won.
You mentioned there about a psychologist. I know in Darren Moore's promotion season at Sheffield Wednesday, they were very big on the psychology of trying to fix things, and there was this sort of Wednesday way of not quite getting the job done. And that season, they managed to get it over the line. Obviously, it was the miracle of Hillsborough with Peterborough. Do you think that the introduction of the psychologist into football has been a big help to a lot of people?
It might not work for all players. I think it will help for a lot. It definitely helped for me. Just sort of helps you focus on how to enjoy what you have, the talent of being a professional footballer. Sometimes you sort of lose that, maybe get a bit complacent with that in the mind. And so for me, it was a real good reminder. An example being that season, missed a great chance at Charlton away. We lost 1-0. And my brother was in the away end. And I think somebody said, oh, he's not as good as his dad. How's he missed that chance? And he told me afterwards, and he said, somebody said, how have you missed that chance? I was like, didn't miss it on purpose. Do you know what I mean? I just missed the chance. But it stayed with me in my mind. And then sort of seeing the psychologist and speaking to him, it helped me shift it because it was in my mind for a couple of games after, still thinking about how have I missed that chance. And I needed to learn how to release stuff like that.
Yeah. I always think it's fascinating talking to footballers about sort of moments like that. I mean, we're like, what, a decade and a half later now, and you still remember that moment, that chance. Is that something that do you have quite a lot of those over the course of your career that maybe you don't not regret, but do you often think about like, oh, if I'd done this at that point, like do you have these moments? But maybe when you're at Liverpool, if one thing had happened, maybe you wouldn't have ended up leaving and you would have stayed there. These kind of sliding doors moments.
Why is the keeper safe that? Why is the ref giving that? Always, absolutely. What might have been?
Mm,
Yeah, can't change what's happened, unfortunately. But yeah, there's certainly moments where you're thinking, "Oh, I wish that would have happened," but it never did. I'm grateful, and do you know what? I'm grateful that I got to experience being a professional footballer. My dad was there to watch me. My brother was there along the journey as well. So yeah, it was great to live that dream and play for Wednesday, play for Liverpool as well. Preston really enjoyed
mm.
playing for those football clubs.
Yeah, I know you said you didn't get to sort of experience the sort of Sheffield around your dad when you were growing up, but obviously you'll have come to watch you play at Wednesday. Did you get to see a little bit of it then? Did you see how revered he was around the place and that kind of thing when you were a little bit older?
I think just hearing the song because of Boxing Day, it's
Mm.
sort of a reminder all the time. Wednesday fans don't forget. Wednesday fans do not forget big moments in the history, and obviously diving
Not
yeah, but diving header at Blackburn as well, people would come up to me, "Oh, I remember your dad scoring that goal," and do you know what?
Yeah,
It was really nice. It was really nice to hear some of those stories, and before he passed away, I got some of his stories down in a book. The fact that he lived with Jack Charlton. How many players
yeah.
live with Jack Charlton and managed by Jack Charlton? So, yeah, it was good to get a few of his stories down and memories from that time.
I bet he's got some stories about Big Jack.
Not on a podcast, you can't say them.
Very fair, very fair. We have seen you about Hillsborough quite a lot. Obviously, you come and do punditry there, and you are back at Hillsborough quite regularly. Is it still somewhere that you sort of enjoy going to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my links at Liverpool, and obviously it's
Mm,
because of the tragedy that happened there. It's a significant place for very different reasons for Liverpool fans. But for me,
yeah,
with my dad's past, the fact that I played there as well, I sort of try and look at it from a Sheffield Wednesday point of view and the playing time. So yeah, I mean, for me, whilst the season I had there, the team didn't do particularly well. I got 20 goals, and the fans sort of think did all right. Not as good as my dad, but still had an all right season.
mm. Do you still find that people pull you up now? Like when you do go to Hillsborough, if you are around Sheffield, do you still get sort of recognised? I mean, there's people of my age, my generation that sort of were in our peak football going years in 2010, 11. And I always think there's something about that period where Wednesday weren't very good, but it almost made the good moments better because they were fewer and further between.
You can say we were rubbish, Joe. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, no, I mean that's football, isn't it? Wednesday will be back. Wednesday will be back in the Premier League at some point. It's taken a while, but the size of the club, the fans, the passion down there, they'll get it right at some point. I really do hope so. And obviously, you remember the times at Yeovil away and Rochdale away, those sort of games, and think, "Oh, wasn't in a good place." But that's the way football is. Yeah, I mean, when I go back to Wednesday now and see the fans, a lot of them recognise me from sort of doing the Soccer Saturday, the Sky Sports stuff,
Yeah,
but there will be some fans who say, "Oh, I remember this game or that game," and it's always nice to hear the stories about some of those memories that the fans have.
yeah. So I did want to touch. I couldn't have you on the show without talking about that Champions League. It was a pivotal game in my football watching lifetime. I know you didn't play in the final, but you played your part in that Champions League campaign. What was that like? Because that must have been, from coming playing that game, scoring that goal against Olympiacos. I know you set Steven Gerrard up for an important goal as well, and then to watch on the greatest Champions League final of all time. I mean, what was that whole experience like for you?
You got to remember that they were my mates, my
Mm,
teammates, that I'd had breakfast with, I'd trained with, had lunch with, a very intimate relationship. The sort of the changing room dynamic, and they were my mates that season. And for them to So being embarrassed and humiliated at half time, 3-0 down in the biggest game of their lives, was quite hurtful to watch, thinking, "Oh, I'd take 3-1 now." But for what they did in that second half, and like you say, one of the greatest comebacks in Champions League final history was unbelievable. So to share the moment with them on the pitch afterwards, in the dressing room, back at the hotel, it was just an unforgettable time, which the fans will never forget, to win the Champions League the way that Liverpool did. My part was small, a lovely cushion header for Gerrard, which he's still grateful for, which is nice, and a goal in the game as well. So I always believe that if any team's to succeed, everybody's got to play a part. Some play small parts, some play big parts, like Gerrard did. But yeah, it was an incredible story, Istanbul.
Yeah. Did you ever get a winners medal? I know I remember reading that you hadn't got one at one point. Did you ever manage to get one?
No, no. Ended up getting Maldini's or Shevchenko's. AC Milan left medals behind, so we just went to the podium, grabbed one, didn't realise it was not a gold one; it was silver, and yeah, I've still got it. So I'm waiting for a text off Maldini to come and get his medal back. But they left them behind. They won it 2 years later, though, AC Milan, so they got the
Yeah.
winners in the end.
Yeah, I don't think that Paolo Maldini's too worried about missing out on his runners-up medal from a frankly forgettable evening for AC Milan. Just sort of sort of going back onto Wednesday, and you say that you think that Wednesday will be back one day. It, what do you think it is about Wednesday? I mean, you played a part in a it was a bit of a raucous period at Wednesday, and it has been like that, this roller coaster for many many years. What do you think it is that's stopping Wednesday from getting back there? Because they're one of the few that have gone down and never got back up, even not for like one season. They've not managed to sort of poke the head above the precipice again.
Wednesday will be back. Wednesday will be back. I think the uncertainty off the pitch doesn't help. Obviously with ownerships, with change of manager, with constant changes of players. The biggest strength Sheffield Wednesday have is the fans, and that will always make it an appealing football club for owners, for managers, for players to go and play. So I do believe at some point they'll get it right, and we'll see Sheffield Wednesday back in the Premier League. I really do hope so. Because it's such a big football club. When I was there, the fans, the passion, even going back there now, and when my brother goes, it's all the passion and the songs and all that. So I hope to see Wednesday back in the Premier League at some point soon.
Yeah, with your brother and your family connection, and then obviously you do it for work, but are they still a club that you keep a very very close eye on? I mean, I know you had your time at Preston, which was long, but Wednesday was, in terms of your return, it was one of the best spells in your career, wasn't it? Like, will you always have that soft spot for what's going on at Hillsborough?
Yeah, well, yeah. And that was the reason why when Neil Warnock was ringing my dad to sign at Sheffield United, I was like, no chance. I'm not going there. Sheffield Wednesday will always be a football club that I look out for the results. Preston North End, exactly the same. And Liverpool. I will always look out for those clubs. And it's the football club will mean a lot to the family always. It
Mhm.
always will do. So I'm grateful to have had a small season there. My dad played a number of seasons there and had bigger moments than I had. And the fact that my brother and his sons still follow Sheffield Wednesday, it's a big part of the family.
Yeah. Just before I let you go, you said there about turning down Sheffield United. What point was that? Was that to join Wednesday, or was it at a different stage?
Now, different stage. I was at Liverpool at the time, and he kept ringing my dad and ringing my dad and saying, "When are you going to bring Neil down?" I was like, "Dad, I'm not going. I'm not going at all." So that was sort of back in the early to mid noughties before, before I came to Wednesday, long before that. I didn't turn Sheffield United down for Sheffield Wednesday. No.
Yeah, well, people will be very pleased to hear your loyalty to the cause anyway. Neil, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And maybe we'll touch base a little bit further down the line when Wednesday do get back to the Premier League. Cheers, Neil. All the best.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers.